Good morning, and welcome to the Forest stage here at ETH Barcelona. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Willy Ogorzaly from ShapeShift and Giveth, who will be presenting Scaling DAOs. Come on up.
Thanks for that. Testing. Bom dia, amigos. How are you guys doing? Woo! Hope you're having the best day ever so far. My name's Willy. I'm a shapeshifter by day, Givether by night, two amazing DAOs that have a little bit of experience scaling. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic with you guys today. It's something I'm super passionate about, and I'm hoping we can have a great discussion, talk about this very important topic together. So we're going to be talking about scaling DAOs vertically, horizontally, and even into other dimensions. So, to start, I want to start with a myth that I've been seeing all over Twitters, even in reputable publications like TechCrunch and CoinDesk, that supposedly DAOs can't scale. Has anyone here heard this myth before? Raise your hand. All right, thank you. Keep your hand raised if you believe this myth. Okay, so I can tell I'm preaching to the choir here, but we at least have a few skeptics in the audience. So let's talk about this, right? Let's talk about why, because every perspective is valid. So these are the three main reasons that I hear touted for why DAOs can't scale. First, of course, is this assumption that DAOs must be flat. You can't have any kind of hierarchy, or that's not a DAO. The next one is that DAOs are just slow by their nature. They're fundamentally slow. People believe that every single decision needs to go to a vote, and that these governance processes are just lengthy and cumbersome and slow. And the last, of course, is the need for proof. DAOs have really yet to prove that they can scale to large sizes and operate sustainably. That's fair. But let's look at reality. The reality is that, sure, DAOs can be flat, but they don't have to be. They can be any shape. They can be hierarchical, or really any shape that the community desires. And importantly, their structure is fluid and can change and adapt over time. So for this reason, I'm calling DAOs four-dimensional. As far as speed goes, speed isn't always slow in a DAO. It doesn't have to be. It can be. But it can also be variable and configurable. And it can be designed just as efficiently as a traditional org, if that's what the community wants. There's no reason it can't be. And as far as the proof goes, it's TBD. We're still figuring it out actively right here, right now. And now is the time to experiment, find out what works and what doesn't. But personally, I don't see any reason why the largest and most valuable organizations in the world won't be structured as DAOs. So, if we can agree that DAOs can scale, the next question we should ask ourselves is should DAOs scale? And the answer, of course, is it depends. You don't have to scale if you don't want to. If you want to, if your community wants to, you can have a completely sustainable micro-economy and micro-community. Some people actually think that DAOs just shouldn't scale and that they should stay lean. And this I don't agree with. I think certainly for some DAOs it will make sense for them to stay small, and then for other DAOs it will make sense for them to scale, just like with traditional organizations. Ultimately, it's up to the community. Sometimes you don't have a choice though. You start going viral, your Discord starts blowing up. So if you really want to keep your community capped at a certain size, there's tools out there. One is Collabland. It's a tool for token gating. You can do it for your discourse, your Discord, and you can use transferable governance tokens or NFTs. Also, if you want to have a transferable governance token that can be traded, but you expect to have a low liquidity environment, bonding curves are just an amazing, almost magical tool that we're not going to dive too deep into today, but if you are in this position where you want to have a transferable governance token and you assume low liquidity, bonding curves are an amazing way to provide that liquidity and make it always tradable, even in that low liquidity environment. So these are great tools if you don't want to scale, but that's pretty much all the information I have today for those who don't want to scale. For those of you that do want to learn how to scale, this next part is for you. And again, we're going to talk about scaling vertically, horizontally, and into other dimensions. So let's start with vertical scaling, which basically is like growing your DAO. Horizontal scaling is more like keeping your DAO small and leveraging tools outside of your DAO to scale. And there's three pieces I think that are really important to scaling vertically. We're going to talk about organizational structure, scalable governance processes, and scalable communities. So let's talk organizational structure, something that I'm really interested in, excited about. I think this is key to scaling DAOs. And right now we're looking at ShapeShift's organizational structure. By the way, feel free to fork this, copy this, change it. Just, we ask that if you figure out something better that works better, that you share the information so we can learn too. But yeah, so let's dissect this. You can see up top, we have the DAO, with of course the community of token holders at the very top. And these token holders can create work streams. And these work streams are effectively sub-DAOs. So anyone can propose a work stream. You guys could propose a work stream if you have an idea for one. And we have a template. And basically, like, when you propose a work stream, we ask you to answer a few questions like, okay, what's the mission of your work stream, right? What are the goals that your work stream's trying to achieve? What are some KPIs that the community can use to measure your success and whether your work stream is doing well or not? What budget are you requesting from the DAO treasury? And how frequently are you going to communicate with the community and let us know how you're doing with your progress? Then the community will have a discussion, a debate, and if they like the work stream and get the proposal to a point where everyone's in alignment, we've got consensus, it goes up for vote. And once approved, these sub-DAOs are formed, and they basically have their own treasury. So we're using Colony. We use Snapshot and Gnosis Safe for the top-level DAO. Colony powers the bottom 2/3. So each of these work streams are sub-DAOs on Colony that have their own treasury. And this is so powerful because what it enables these work streams to do is move quickly and get shit done because they are autonomous and they have the ability to allocate their treasury however they see best fit to achieve those goals that they propose to the community. And we also have work stream leaders, which might sound like people raise their eyebrows. They're like, what? Leaders in a DAO? No. But yes, there's a ton of leaders in a DAO, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Leaders are great, as long as the community is the ultimate leader on top. So, and we actually have a proposal going through our process right now to kind of clarify the definition of workstream leaders. Like, for example, do they have the power to hire and fire contributors in their workstream? And if this proposal passes, it will be very clear that, yes, they do have this power until the community revokes it. So as long as the workstreams are doing good, community's happy, it's much easier for the community to measure the success of a workstream than to vote on every decision that these workstreams are making. The workstreams have the best context. They're boots on the ground, and hopefully they're the subject matter experts. And it's great for these workstreams to be able to move very quickly. And they should still, of course, communicate their progress and everything to the community, but they don't have to ask the community's permission for every single thing they can do. It's super empowering. And I think this is one of the reasons that we've been able to get so much shit done at ShapeShift DAO. So yeah, organizational structure, I think, is key. And we've talked about sub-DAOs. You can also have committees that are basically kind of like sub-DAOs, but they don't always have to have their own treasury. Basically, the community can appoint a group of individuals to make decisions. You can do whatever you want with the DAO, right? It's up to the community. So get creative. We have a committee for treasury management and diversification, and they have a budget of Fox tokens that they can use to diversify the treasury. And they're able to do this quickly. This is another cool thing. Like we talked about DAOs being slow. These committees, you can give them the authority to make decisions very quickly, which can erase that. And people always talk about like, oh, DAOs are so slow. Even if you have a 2-week governance process, the fact that you can go from an idea to funding in 2 weeks is incredible if you compare that to some of these huge corporations. So importantly, you should have the community on top. The community should always have the final say, and if the community wants to appoint like a CEO or something, that's okay, but the community should also have the power to remove them. And with these tools, you can imagine, like we have the full spectrum of possibilities. You can design a DAO to look however you want, and you can keep changing it. You can have sub-DAOs within sub-DAOs and committees within sub-DAOs. Really, anything is possible. All right, let's talk about scalable governance processes. This is so key as well. I think there are 3 important pieces to a scalable governance process, probably more, but these are some big ones. First is having multiple stages and filters in your governance process, right? You don't just want like every idea to immediately go up to vote, and now all the token holders have to read this proposal and like vote on it. You want to have some stages. And I suggest making the first stage in your process just a super low barrier for entry, right? Like you don't have to have a whole draft proposal that meets all these requirements and stuff. Just like post your idea in the forum, right? And start to get some feedback. Uh-oh. This is not part of the presentation. Okay. And I also encourage you guys to stay focused when you start and expand from there. So like instead of just posting it to the whole community first, which you can do. There's nothing wrong with that. But start by talking to a relevant work stream, if there is one, and get their feedback, right? And work with them to refine the idea and get consensus between the proposer and the work stream before you take it to the broader community. Or if you're a proposer and you disagree with the work stream and think they're doing a bad job, that's fine. You can appeal straight to the community. But just know that the community has delegated authority to this work stream. They obviously have some trust in this work stream. So it's probably encouraged to at least chat with the work stream and get some feedback before you just YOLO it. Also, this is a great time to do preliminary due diligence, right? Like, have you ever seen a proposal that goes up for vote and then the community halfway through vote realizes like, oh wait, we didn't think about this, or here's a blocker, like we can't do it for this technical reason. Figure that stuff out early with the subject matter experts before you bring it all the way to the community. By the time it gets to the community, you should have a solid proposal that's ready to pass and execute. And over-communicate. I can't stress this enough. Like, just communicate, communicate, communicate. You can never communicate too much. I've never had a community be like, stop, this is too much, even though it is overwhelming, right? But make sure that you're ample opportunity for community members to understand these proposals. You know, have governance calls where you go through them. If there's a proposal that's contentious, or really difficult to understand, like host a call with your community just for that and record it and put it in the forum post so that they can get as much context as they need. The next is proposal votability. You guys ever see proposals that are like, oh, we're going to change these parameters on the smart contract, right? And like, how many people have any idea if that's a good proposal or not, right? But sometimes you got to do it. So like, we always try to make sure that our proposals, are human readable, and again, if it is complex, that there's ample information for people to be able to get that context so they can make an informed decision. Also, these committees, that can be really beneficial. Like even if you have to have on-chain governance for a decision, and you have a committee that doesn't have the power to do that, only the token holders can do it, just having that committee sign off and explain it to the community and say, yes, we support this, is a great way for the community to get that context. And the last is delegation, which is magical, but I'm not going to lie, it's much easier said than done. Delegation is great if you can figure it out, but it's not easy. It doesn't come out of the box. And you need to have, first of all, active delegates that the community trusts, and that the community, they know who they are, right? Like, how should I know who I'm going to delegate to? It only works if you have these delegates that are active and committed, and that the community can get to know and actually trust. And for this reason, good user experience is so key, right? And so hard to do. So that's why I think we've only seen a few DAOs successfully nail delegation. It's some of the bigger DAOs that have these big communities. ShapeShift and Giveth, we haven't really focused on it because it's hard. It takes a lot of effort to build that. And there's a lot of stuff that we've got to build. So we support delegation, but we haven't built the experience that you need to build to really make delegation successful. But it is a great tool, and I'm excited to see more tools come, so we can just spin out of the box delegation, and maybe there'll be these groups. We're already starting to see it. People who are like, I want to delegate. I'm a great delegate. Delegate to me. We might see delegates become a career. Also, strongly suggest having a governance TLDR. This is ours from ShapeShift. Again, feel free to take any of our stuff and evolve it, or just copy pasta. But yeah, these governance processes take a while to read. Nobody likes to read. We got so much stuff to do. Just start with the TLDR so people can really quickly get a high-level understanding of your governance process without having to read the entire thing. And then have the details below. All right, scalable communities. So key, so awesome. I think there's a lot of different ways to scale a community, but I think there's kind of two core ingredients that work really well. Just start by focusing on. And the first, of course, is dank memes. You got to have the dank memes, right? And I don't just mean cartoons. Those are great. But higher level than that, right? Like, what is the reason that your DAO exists? What's your community about? Why should I, as a community member, care about your community and want to get involved? And if you get this right, you'll find, Giveth does this so well. It's building the future of giving. And there's people all around the world in this room who are aligned with that mission, and they hear about it, and they're like, what? I can just come join in the Discord and help out with building the future of giving? I've been dreaming about this for years. And then I can get some give tokens and be an owner in this? What? It's mind-blowing, and it's so powerful. So get those memes right? Gitcoin, funding open source public goods. ShapeShift, building the interface to the decentralized universe. And then, of course, you got to have a dank community experience, right? Once people find out about your community, how can they actually get involved? What does that experience look and feel like to somebody who's just discovered about your DAO? Can they find what they're seeking quickly? Can new community members contribute and then get rewarded? And if you can just nail these top pieces, that is so powerful. Just the funnel of people finding out about your DAO, coming in, getting welcomed, and then being able to contribute and add value, and then get rewarded and become owners. Oh man, that's a flywheel, ready to go. Are community members building relationships? This is so powerful. Like, I love to see community members come in and meet each other and build relationships because that makes it so sticky, right? And we're creating these bonds, this family, this network. Are they learning? Are they earning? Are they growing? And rule number 1, are they having fun? We always have a lot of fun at ShapeShift and Giveth Dao. Woo! Let's freaking go. All right, ignore those things in the bottom. I forgot I was supposed to animate those. So that's how to talk about vertical scaling. Now let's dive into horizontal scaling. And again, this is like, instead of growing your own DAO, how can you leverage other external DAOs and tools to grow? So first, we'll start by talking about D2D, DAO to DAO relationships, which again, are so magical and so powerful. There's something so unique about how a DAO and another DAO can interface, and it just works great. Oops, my animations are all mixed up, bear with me. So, a great example of a DAO to DAO relationship is Raid Guild. Raid Guild is a development agency. They've got developers, product managers, designers that really understand Web3. And it's quite possible that your DAO doesn't have those skills internally. And that's okay. You have options. You can either build that talent in-house, or you can work with a DAO that specializes in it, and that's all that they do. And there's something so cool about these, like when you have a DAO, an organization that's owned by the experts themselves, right? They know how to run a design agency and a development agency, and they're able to attract the best talent. So it's almost like crossing over dimensions, right? Like DAOs, each DAO is unique, and they're almost like snowflakes. But they're not, because they're so different. And they're not just like different galaxies even. They're almost like different dimensions. And when you can reach out to a DAO, another DAO that specializes, it's literally like you're crossing into another dimension, which sounds cool, and it is cool. And Token Engineering Commons, these guys are focused on the expertise of token engineering, which is, again, so powerful, but so hard, and it's a very rare skill. And if you don't have that in your community, that's exactly what they're focused on. And Prime Deals, Prime DAO, their token is actually D2D. And they've just released a tool that makes it really easy to do token swaps with other DAOs, which is another great way to just align interests between two DAOs that are working together. And you don't just have to work with DAOs. You can also work with businesses or contributors. Like ShapeShift DAO right now is working with a development agency to build a feature out for a bounty that was proposed and passed that we probably wouldn't have prioritized internally, but now we can work with this agency to get it done. And Fiverr, don't be afraid of Fiverr. You can get a ton of stuff done on Fiverr. It's a great tool. And the decentralized Fiverrs are coming that accept crypto, and I'm super excited for these. Share is one that just launched this past week, and it looks amazing. And there's going to be so many more cool tools coming. The founder of Share was actually an early developer at Fiverr, so he really has a lot of experience with that. And then D to me, delegation. Again, Gitcoin, ENS are two examples of DAOs that have done that well. I also want to give a shout out to FireEyes. They just launched this Wildfire Dao. And it's a DAO focused on helping other DAOs with their tokenomics, their governance processes, and they can even act as active governance delegates. So this goes back to like this delegation as a career. We're now even starting to see organizations formed that can be delegates for you. So that can be an option potentially for DAOs that don't expect to have a huge community, but still want to be decentralized and still want to have experts participating in their governance. All right, we're running low on time. I want to talk about the DAO Human Action Trilemma. This was just pioneered by Kevin Owocki like a month ago. Basically, TLDR is you can only pick 2 out of 3. Shared consent is like, has everyone approved this decision? Shared context is like, does everyone have context on this decision that's being made? And shared action is like, are we getting shit done, basically? You can only pick 2 of 3. So like real quick, we'll just do one example. Let's say you choose to have action, so you're getting stuff done, and you have context, so people understand what's going on. You're probably giving up consent. Like if you want to get stuff done, maybe not everyone's approving every decision because you want to be able to move quickly, and the community knows about it. And what you risk here is consent debt. And the community, if you upset them, they might fork you. But at least you're getting stuff done, right? On the other side, you might have consent from everybody, and everyone has context, but you're not getting anything done because to do that takes so long to get approval and context for everything. So how do you mitigate this? I think delegation and stewardship, including like sub-DAOs and committees, are a great way to mitigate this, having the community delegate some authority to the sub-DAOs. Focusing on communication, both internally and externally. Document everything, but don't overwhelm. Like conciseness is such a valuable skill in DAOs. And don't be afraid to experiment, right? But make sure that if you are experimenting, it's not just a permanent experiment. Make sure that you are regularly assessing and reprioritizing. Okay, so we've covered how to scale vertically, horizontally, into other dimensions. Now I want to switch gears a bit and talk about the power of free markets and how it relates to scaling DAOs. Throughout humans' history of coordination, DAOs are the freest market that we've ever had within an organization. So not only can DAOs compete with each other and other organizations to solve problems externally. But within DAOs, community members can compete freely to solve internal problems. So it's not a perfectly free market, but I think it's the closest we've ever been, and will continue to improve. It's all coordination. It always has been. So, free markets, first of all, are public goods, and they can be very regenerative. Rainforests and jungles, for example, are examples of very free markets. But before we get too meta, what is a free market, and why should we care? So free markets have existed for a long time. I'm going to actually assume that you guys know the basics about free markets, but I thought this quote was really cool. The free markets, the French in the 1800s saw free markets as the way to unleash human potential through the restoration of a natural system, a system unhindered by the restrictions of government. Sound familiar? Oops. Okay. So the reason free markets work is basically people act out of their self-interest. In fact, it's crazy to ever expect people to act out of their self-interest, and we should never design systems that expect that. Yes, we have altruists, many of them who are here in this room, but even altruists are driven by self-interest, and again, we should never expect that at scale. There's market failures like tragedy of commons, but Giveth is working on fixing this. So for today's talk, we're not going to dive into these. I love Milton Friedman's example of free markets, and he describes a pencil and all the coordination that needs to happen to make a pencil. The people who are cutting the rubber, growing the rubber, the people who are making the wood and mining the graphite and making the chainsaws and the tools, and all the coordination that needs to happen just to make a single pencil. And there's no party overseeing that. It's the invisible hand. And if you can figure out how to unlock a free market in your DAO, you can have the benefits of the invisible hand to help you with coordination. So how do you DAO this? Real quick, there's 3 ingredients to a free market: information, competition, and transparency. Do people have information to make an informed decision? Is competition free and uninhibited? And are you being transparent? Obviously, if you're hiding information or information's manipulated, that can break your free market. But if you have these 3 things, and if you focus on decisions that promote these as opposed to hinder these, then you can unlock the power of the invisible hand, which is so beneficial for scaling your DAO. So I think I'm out of time. I was going to give some examples of ShapeShift Dao and Giveth. I've talked about them both a lot. Encourage you to check them out. They're both here. They have booths. They're amazing communities working on amazing problems. They're showing that we can DAO it. Like ShapeShift, I was working at ShapeShift for 3.5 years before we decentralized, and I can say without a doubt, we're earning more, we're spending less, and we're shipping faster than ever as a DAO. So I believe it's the way. We still got to figure out how to scale DAOs past 100 and to 1,000, but I think together we can figure this out. I'm excited to be on this journey with you all. Thank you guys so much. Hope you have the best day ever. Woo!